no, I didn't make it. Did you get it? Did you get it?
That is literally the first time I've ever passed that level.
Hey, what's going on, everybody from Digital Doc Games? I am Digital Doc, and you are watching Game Changers. It's the show where we play a game with the people changing the game. Today, I am joined by Dr. Eric Gantwerker, pediatric otolaryngologist and medical director and vice president at medical video game company Level X. Eric has a master's in medical science and medical education with a focus on educational technology from Harvard Medical School and a master's of science in physiology and biophysics from Georgetown University. Dr. Gantwerker, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
We are about to play a game dealing with your neck of the woods and medical subject expertise. What's going through your head as we get ready to play this game?
Oh, I'm hearkening back to the days when I was working with our game designers to actually create this game. So this was 5-6 years ago. So I'm having flashbacks and PTSD to going through this stuff.
Well, I hope it's going to be mainly a positive experience. Today we are going to be going head to head in Airway Ex, a game designed for healthcare providers to hone their pulmonary medicine skills like intubations and foreign body extractions. Basically, just a regular day in the office for you, right, Eric?
Yes, exactly. Just this last week, actually, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm going to take you down here, Doc.
All right, sounds good.
Eric, as we get going on this one, what are some things we want to keep in mind as we begin to intubate this pediatric patient?
One of the things that is really big with the difference between kids and adults is they're not just little adults. You'll see in the difference as we go to the different levels, how close the voice box is to the mouth. It's actually extremely close. And in fact, in kids, oftentimes the palate overlies the epiglottis. You can see the palate here with the uvula and the epiglottis. And actually in little babies, these overlap, which is why little babies under 6 months of age are obligate nasal breathers. They have to breathe through their nose.
Wow.
And it's because these overlap with each other. And then as the kids grow, the larynx drops, and obviously there's a bigger space here. And so they can obviously breathe through their mouth now. So depending on this age of the child, this is actually a very difficult thing to do, especially while I'm looking on screen and trying to talk to you. So I got a 5980. How's yours?
Eric, I'm sorry to report that I got a 2 stars, 14030.
How is that even possible?
I'm not going to reveal my ways.
You know what?
Oh, you're doing that one again?
I'm doing it again. I am not going to lose to you, damn it.
I'm jumping in back too. That's not right. I have a feeling this one's gonna be a little bit more tricky.
This one, it gets very complicated very fast.
Oh no.
This is a tough case. And the interesting thing here is that you can choose to go through the mouth, but you can see there's a massive tongue in there.
Wow.
So most of us providers will actually, prefer to go through the nose.
Yeah.
And you can see here, you stay along the floor of the nose, you can get into the nasopharynx, and then you come down and you can see actually in the back of the throat, the tongue's actually not that big.
A study out of Pennsylvania State University found that teenage gamers outperformed first-year OBGYN residents in laparoscopic surgery simulation. Are these findings surprising to you? And what does this say to you about the millions of kids out there playing games?
So this is my message to parents. Your children playing games is not a waste of time. It has long been believed that there are skills that are being developed while playing video games and playing games in general that actually map to real life. There's things like leadership, collaboration, coordination, communication. Think about all these MMOs right now, these online games, and how much coordination and communication has to happen, how much leadership actually skills get developed, and those actually map to real life. which is why this whole term gamification of the workspace and serious games have all evolved out of this, because we realize that real skills can be developed in games and can transfer to real life. And that hand-eye coordination, that ability to not look at your hands, and that ability to have an action on a screen, a two-dimensional screen, is something that's very inherent and gets very, very well trained in people who play games. And we know that those skills actually transfer to the laparoscopic space. And we've seen that in general surgery. We've seen that in multiple other studies, not just OB-GYN, that those skills of the actual psychomotor skills of laparoscopic actually transfers.
Eric, Pulm X has a level where you extract a little Lego man out of a patient's airway. What's the most out there thing that you found inside of a real life patient?
One of the craziest things I took out of an adult was a bluegill fish, a whole bluegill fish. The guy was actually trying to bait fish, and he caught a bluegill, and he went to go bite the head off to try and put it onto the hook, and the thing moved, and he went and sucked it down into his lung.
Is that a thing though, that a fisherman would bite the fish?
That's the story he told us. I don't know how true it is, but that's the story he told us.
That fish ended up where it shouldn't have been.
So that fish, and I don't know if you know bluegill fish, but they have spikes on them.
Yeah.
And the spike actually punctured through the side wall of the trachea, and he got a bunch of air in his neck because of the bluegill fish. And when we went to go take him to the operating room, when you tried to pull on the fish, you were at risk of tearing the airway. And so, and at this point, the fish was face down with its tail flopping over onto the other side, totally blocking his right mainstem. And when we went to go take it out, it got caught at the vocal cords and it tore in half. Wow. And the other half went shooting down into the right lung. And then we basically were able to get it out. But it was a crazy case. I actually wrote that case up. It's actually a published case study.
Wow.
But yeah, that was a crazy, crazy one, because you don't want to tear the airway. People swallow crazy things.
Level X is unique in that it brings together medical and game experts to build the games. What is the biggest challenge, in your opinion, of bringing these two disciplines together?
So one of the craziest things is actually trying to have a common knowledge, because we come from different disciplines. A good example of this was the term procedural means something completely different in game design than it does in medicine. And it took us a while to figure out, I don't think you're saying the same thing that I'm saying. Creating that common knowledge was always really difficult. Now it's been 5-6 years, and we all sort of have a common vernacular, and we understand each other, and we understand that. But early on, when we used to have conversations, I was like, oh, that's procedural. And they're like, what do you mean? And then I was like, oh, it's a procedure. They're like, that's not what procedural means. I was like, it does in medicine. Like, what does it mean in games? And then they explained it to me, and I was like, oh, that's totally different. That's not exactly what I was talking about.
These, I think, are the most difficult levels.
These are by far, the mazes are the most difficult. And our first game designer, Itai, loved making these, and they were so difficult.
I love to see this is kind of where the video gamey elements shine. And, this is just kind of showing when you can sort of combine, whoa, did I go the wrong way? When you could combine sort of these video game elements, you get that extra oomph of just kind of excitement.
Correct. And I think one of the things I've realized in healthcare games is that when the goal of the game is tangential to the actual medical knowledge or medical skill that's required, there's something special that happens. There's some special thing that happens with your brain that allows you to focus on the task at hand, and all of a sudden you almost subconsciously create these skills. And I think that's where magic really happens, as opposed to like the math blasters, where like the goal of the game is to add numbers, right? I mean, so here the goal was to collect hearts, right? And so, in order to gain that skill, I need to be able to navigate the bronchial tree. But the goal of the game isn't to navigate the bronchial tree. That's a skill you have to develop in order to achieve the goal of collecting as many hearts as possible. And I think that's where I think some of the gamification that happens in medical education and other fields sort of falls short a little bit, because they just think that, oh, if there's competition, oh, if there's a leaderboard, that's really going to work and that's going to change the way that people are motivated to engage with this experience. But that's not really the secret sauce of games. The secret sauce of games is that you have to develop skills and knowledge in order to succeed in the game. But developing the skills and knowledge isn't the goal of the game. That is the means to the end, but that's not the end.
How's that PTSD holding up? You doing all right?
It's doing good. It's doing good.
Okay.
I was happy on the decisions we made.
All right. Well, I think you're probably beating me at this point. We'll tally it up at the end. Eric, you're a big proponent for immersive technology like virtual reality. Did you have a specific experience in VR that you can think of where kind of you know, when you went in, everything clicked and, you know, you really said, oh, there's something really special about this, you know, versus kind of it just being a fad?
One of the things that actually inspired me was that actually seeing bad VR. And I saw people that were using VR as like a way to view two-dimensional animations or two-dimensional videos with zero interaction. And then you start to see some of the folks that are doing some more interesting things, especially in the surgical education space, beyond just looking at anatomy. Obviously, VR as a viewer is it's pretty, it's interesting, but I think it doesn't necessarily hit where it can. I think the optimal experience is where you are interacting with that virtual world. And I think games has been a huge space for that. And going to GDC, the Game Developers Conference, and seeing all the stuff that people are doing in VR it really inspires me. We haven't seen that yet in medical education too much.
This next question is questions from the audience, and it's less of a question and more of a prompt. It comes from one Dr. Brian Gantwerker, and says, ask Eric about nasal Legos.
Nasal Legos, oh geez. So some people think that I went into ENT because I put a Lego up my nose when I was a kid. That's not necessarily the entire truth, but yes, I did put a Lego up my nose. And the story goes that I was a toddler. I can't remember what age I was, but we used to have a grease trap outside our house and you would pour grease down it. And I put the newspaper down it. And in the same week, I put a Lego up my nose, I put a newspaper down the grease trap, and I put our family car in reverse, and it rolled into the street.
What a week.
That was a week where my mom always told me that if I was the firstborn, I would have been the lastborn. Oh, you're gonna make me do the maze, aren't you?
We're going soccer. Oof. We're going soccer. Oof.
So I think, again, this is a good example of where you have to develop skills to achieve a goal, but the skills aren't the goal of the game, right? You have to develop the skills in order to play the game.
Right.
And this actually is really interesting. So if you could actually get even this with a physical device, for people who are not mechanically inclined with actually endoscopes, this would be a great experience. Got the first one.
It's a great point that, before you start trying this on a patient, if you could do this, I always get so twisted and turned around in this one, but if you could do this to practice just your maneuverability of these devices,
correct,
it'd be a fun way to learn.
Correct,
I'm
exactly.
All snaked up. Once I get upside down and stuff, because
it's so hard.
It's so hard because you have to think there's like a wire behind you that's essentially tangled up.
And this is actually even harder because it's got blockers.
Yeah, I'm.
So, and the problem is if the ball goes to the side, you're done.
Yeah, that's it.
It's over.
I'm so close. I'm channeling my inner Danny Rojas here. Football is life. Let's go, Ted Lasso. Come on now. Come on. No, I'm at the side, Eric. I'm at the side.
Oh God.
Am I done? We have reached the side. I got 10 seconds.
So the other trick actually is that we actually used in real life is if you actually pull back the scope, it actually straightens itself out.
I just did that. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Oh no, I didn't make it. Did you get it?
That is literally the first time I've ever passed that level.
You saw it here,
first time.
Live,
first
captured
time
on camera.
It's like that Super Mario things where you do it in 3 minutes and 40 seconds or whatever.
Run, right.
You can't look at me, you can't cheat. So this is a perfect example of strategy over the psychomotor. So this level is all about strategy. There's a massive tumor blocking the larynx. You can't even see the larynx here. And if you touch the tumor, it'll push you back. And this is something that I train my residents over and over and over on, that if you can't see the airway, there's a principle that we go by. And that principle is go for the bubbles. Okay. And here, if you're a very perceptive person, if you're looking at the top here, if you look at the top right at about 2 o'clock, you can see a couple bubbles there. You see on the other sides, you don't see those bubbles. Well, guess what? The bubbles are happening because there's air escaping or coming through that area. So if you go actually towards the bubbles, you're actually a better area. There you go.
Ooh, yeah, it's tough to get in there though.
It is tough because there's a massive tumor.
Right. Wow.
This is a tough case. Sometimes we do an awake tracheostomy for something this big.
Right. Wow. Has that advice ever followed you outside of the hospital to help you in your life? Follow the bubbles?
Follow the bubbles. Yeah. When I'm walking through Chicago, there's a guy who sprays the bubbles.
You run away from that.
Yeah, I went away from him. Yeah. He's a nice guy.
So Eric, although medicine can be a very fulfilling and rewarding career, doctors themselves are not immune to suffering from mental health issues. Burnout in medicine is a prevalent and widely acknowledged issue, with 60% of physicians attributing burnout to too many bureaucratic tasks. In what ways has the process of working in the medical system maybe jaded you over the past years?
I was hoping you were going to go positive on this one, but I think that medicine has created a lot of cynics. And I think the old guard where, when we were doctors in the 1970s, 1980s, doctoring was seemingly easier. Like we like to think that it was easier because really all you had to focus on was taking care of patients, and everything else, like the insurance, like the regulations, like the documentation, all that stuff really wasn't prominent. And really you could just focus on, hey, I just want to be a doctor. I want to take care of patients. And I don't want to worry about how I get paid and where my money's going to come from and how I'm going to feed my kids. And that has been totally morphed and changed. And I think when you look at the literature for burnout, I think a lot of people are burning out because of all those factors that you were talking about. And there's just increasing regulation. There's increasing stress on seeing more patients and doing more things with less resources. And I think that doctors are just starting to get tired of it. And what you're starting to see is doctors actually doing a lot of things outside of medicine, like myself, because they want to find some fulfillment in things other than medicine. And that's an unfortunate trend that I think will continue, because we're seeing doctors going into real estate. We're seeing doctors going into business. We're seeing doctors going into innovation and healthcare and entrepreneurship. I think you're starting to see all this as a direct result of the burnout from the clinical space. And I think that administrators and everybody who's involved in hospital administration don't realize this. And I think that there's going to be a crisis at some point if we don't correct this. And right now, I really don't see a way that healthcare is making strides towards correcting this. I spend maybe, in a given day, maybe 20% with the patient, and 80% of my time is doing documentation, doing billing, following up on phone calls, following up on doing peer-to-peer to get prior authorization for a scan that I think they need, but somebody from the insurance company doesn't want to pay for it. And then I have to spend an hour on the phone with somebody who's not even my specialty, trying to explain to them why my patient needs a CT scan when I think that it's the best thing to do. And that's just a waste of my time. Right. And so this ungodly amount of time spent not with direct patient care, not using my skill set, which is really making those decisions, taking care of patients, and all that time is wasted. That is, I think, what's so frustrating for clinicians today. And that's why I think you're seeing a lot of physicians going to other spaces, getting MBAs, getting extra degrees, things like that, because they want to find some other area where they can put their skill sets to use and get some job satisfaction. And actually, when I joined AirwayEx part-time back in 2018, I had probably 5 or 6 people within that few months who reached out to me who literally I hadn't talked to in years, people from medical school, people that were acquaintances, friends of friends, who reached out to me and said, I'm so burned out. How did you do it? And I said, how did I do what? They're like, how did you get out of clinical practice?
Eric, as space travel becomes more and more possible, a new branch of medicine has sprung up called space medicine. AirwayEx has been working to build a medical video game for NASA to simulate some of the body's anatomical and physiological changes in space. What is one surprising or interesting thing you learned about the body's response to space that may or may not be going on with Jeff Bezos right now?
I didn't realize like all the pressure differences and all, we always know about a lot of the muscular things and the bone density things. I didn't realize all the things about the ocular changes, how the eye actually changes shape. I didn't realize like how much the heart changes shape and how the fluid shifts change. I always knew they needed to exercise and stuff, but there's such crazy fluid shifts that are happening. And some of the cases that we actually, our team researched, and, the IJ thrombosis case that we actually have in our game or in our product suite is just a crazy case, like the crazy things that happen in space. And I think this is going to be amplified in deep space missions. And thank God for all the people that we've been working with the NASA and the Trish program, who've just been fantastic to really give us some of the background research to be able to build what we're building and trust us, and just crazy stuff. And every organ system is affected, and just the venous stasis that happens is so crazy in space. And I think that's been the craziest thing for me.
Well, Dr. Gantwerker, we did it. We reached the end of our Airway Ex playthrough. I don't even want to look at the score because I am quite positive you absolutely mopped the floor with me. How do you feel?
This was hard. I have to say, I think, the whole idea of trying to get interviewed while playing a video game is actually very difficult. Your cognitive load and your sensory memory is really overloaded while you're trying to do this and trying to think through, you don't ask easy questions. So it's really I have to really create a cogent thought. So I really enjoyed it. And I thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. I thought my background as a streamer would come in handy. I don't think it did. I think I was just
life skills from playing
That's right.
games,
There you
right?
go. There you go. Eric, please let us know what you have going on right now, where people can follow you, and how people can check out this game if they want to play it for themselves.
Absolutely. So all of AirwayEx's games are available on the App Store. So we have 5. We have AirwayEx, GastroEx, PalmEx, CardioEx, and now Top Derm is our newest game for dermatologists. Please look at, we just had a CNBC thing come out on AirwayEx, so you can check out our website, levelex.com. And you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Dr. Eric Gant. I'm also on LinkedIn at the same. Please feel free to reach out to me, and look forward to hearing from everybody.
All right. Well, there you go. We played a game for health and we had a lot of fun doing it. If you enjoyed watching this, please go ahead and like this video and make sure to subscribe to Digital Doc Games for everything games and health. We really appreciate you, and have a great one.